Pandemics require an all-hands-on-deck approach to protect the health of our communities. In the United States, public health partnerships successfully allowed nationwide delivery of tests, medicines, and vaccines. Welcome, and thank you for viewing this video on overview of the U.S. medical countermeasures system. This video is a background to the National Academies workshop series labeled Medical Countermeasures, Expanding Delivery and Uptake Through Public-Private Partnerships. I'm Ali Khan, Dean of the College of Public Health here at the University of Nebraska Medical Center, and I have the distinct honor of serving as the Planning Committee Chair for this 5-series workshop. There are many lessons from previous and the current public health emergency that have emphasized the importance of public-private partnerships to facilitate and accelerate research, development, and manufacturing of MCMs, of medical countermeasures. But there's really been less focus on where those public-private partnerships have enabled the successful implementation of medical countermeasures. And implementation involves getting these medical countermeasures from those who make them to the community that needs them, right? So that's where your public health action is. The steps within the MCM system from distribution to acceptance, dispensing, or administration, the nuance there is whether you give somebody a pill or whether you administer a vaccine, and monitoring. All of this is called the last mile. Now, monitoring and data for decision-making support more strategic and operational aspects of implementation that are beyond the last mile, obviously. Successfully implementing MCMs during a public health emergency also greatly depends, I would say critically depends, on communities' willingness to accept and utilize these medical countermeasures. In addition to this video, we have made a second video available which focuses on the barriers and facilitators to MCM acceptance with a look at some historical examples. So, the objectives of our workshop series, it's really to examine the lessons learned and future opportunities for public-private partnerships to facilitate this distribution, dispensing, administration, and acceptance of MCMs for a public health emergency. And we're looking forward to this 5-part series workshop building on the lessons learned from various public-private partnership models deployed during this last mile of the COVID-19 response and other recent public health emergencies such as monkeypox, and discuss potential paths forward for public-private partnerships to facilitate successful implementation of MCMs to the public during any future public health emergency. During the workshop series, invited speakers will present their experience with public-private partnerships, also has its own acronym, PPP. For the purposes of this workshop, public-private partnerships are collaborations between these government entities, the public sector, and companies or organizations in the private sector. Very broad. Industry, nonprofit organizations, private health organizations, systems, universities. So more than just contracts, for example, between a governmental agency and some private entity. And this workshop series will examine these public-private partnerships through the lens of medical countermeasure distribution, dispensing, administration, and acceptance. For the purpose of this workshop, the definitions we'll be using for MCMs are the FDA definitions and the CDC definition. The FDA definition specifically talks about FDA-regulated products, whether they're biologics, drugs, or devices that may be used in the event of a potential public health emergency stemming from a terrorist attack with biological, chemical, or radiological, or nuclear material, or a naturally occurring emerging disease. The CDC definition is a little bit more broader, and so they define MCMs as medicine and medical supplies that can be used to diagnose, prevent, or treat diseases related to CBRN threats, and that should also include, obviously, emergencies and natural pandemics and emerging infectious diseases and natural disasters. So how does the U.S. public medical countermeasure system work? I think we need to admit it's complex, it's interconnected, and it's dynamic. It's a large ecosystem that involves obviously the individuals who benefit from the medical countermeasures, but it also includes public and or private entities that develop and manufacture these medical countermeasures, that ensure the procurement, storage, and distribution of these medical countermeasures, that dispense or administer these medical countermeasures, evaluate the medical countermeasures, and support end users in the acceptance and uptake of medical countermeasures. Medical countermeasures are made available during health emergencies through a series of intercalated activities, both regulatory and sort of physical in terms of supply of drugs and other materials. So the Strategic National Stockpile, which is a component of the federal response infrastructure, can deliver such materials immediately, directly or indirectly. We have emergency use authorizations, which are used by FDA to facilitate the availability and use of these MCMs. And then finally, these MCMs can be dispensed or administered by healthcare providers, healthcare workers, or individuals. So the components of the medical countermeasure system are shown here. It's a busy slide, so let me just take you to the middle of the slide and the chevrons in the middle. They start at supply of medical countermeasures, but you could potentially take it even further back into the original research and manufacturing of these medical countermeasures, and they go all the way through recovery of any residual medical countermeasures in the community. For the purpose of the workshop, we'll be focusing on the distribution, often at the state and local level or at the individual level, administration, dispensing, safety, effectiveness, uptake, additional dose reminders, and then obviously recovery of any residual materials within the community. Now, to support this, there's 4 big components that we'll be discussing during this workshop series. The first and the most important, so I put it right at the top, is community understanding and acceptance of medical countermeasures. And this starts way at the beginning of the process, not at the end, when you're showing up to deliver something to somebody. It also includes communications and partner guidance throughout the process to make sure that this work is done efficiently and timely. And then all of this is stacked on good data around supply monitoring and tracking of these medical countermeasures, and then finally regulatory considerations throughout this whole process. Now, experience from responding to the COVID-19 pandemic and some other recent events have highlighted key strategies that contributed to the success of these public-private partnerships. This included using a systems thinking approach, scalable and flexible public health-private partnerships, understanding policies, regulations, and actions that can mobilize these private sector partners, and planning ahead for the evolving role of public-private partnerships in MCM response. And during the course of the workshop, we're going to highlight some of these experiences, but as importantly, we want to identify more successful partnership approaches that can inform future public health emergency responses. So thank you for viewing this video. We hope you will join us for all 5 of these workshop series, and you have the details of these 5 workshops on this final slide and a QR code to register.